Hey guys, I'm Gene Delasala, president of Audioholics, and today I want to talk to you about converting a regular room into a home theater room. We get a lot of questions about how someone could do that, how they could turn any room in their house into a home theater. So I came up with kind of a 7 basic steps on how to do that, and hopefully this gives you guys some ideas, and also you could share some of your own ideas in the threads below after the video. So let's start. Let's start with step one. Okay. Step one would be choosing the right room in your house. Now, you might have a den, you might have a family room, you might have a very large bedroom that you're not using, or you want to repurpose into a home theater. The idea here is try to choose a room, ideally that has 4 walls, and that doesn't open into another room. Like, for example, a lot of family rooms in Florida, they open to a kitchen. So you have no back wall, and the sound will go throughout the whole house. It could be annoying to people that are trying to cook or they're trying to study or whatever. Also, when you don't have a room with 4 walls on it, your acoustical environment isn't as well controlled. So it's difficult to get good bass response in a room like that. It's difficult sometimes to mount rear speakers or back channel speakers. So sometimes you have to go with in-ceiling speakers, which is fine if you have no other choice. But if you could start with a basic room that's a rectangle with 4 walls, or a room that closes itself off so it's not part of a super room in the rest of the house, you're way ahead of the game right there, guys. The room makes the world of difference. So that's the first step I would tell you, is to choose the best room in the house that's suited for a home theater type of environment. Okay, now let's go to step two. Step two is pre-wiring your room. You got to kind of think about what you want to do before you do it, because in today's day and age, you need Ethernet, you need your coax for your, whether you're doing Fios or you're doing satellite. You need your pre-wires for your speakers. So preferably if you have a room that has attic access and you could run some of this, or if you're in a new construction house and you could get into the walls before the drywall goes up, that's great. I would tell you to make sure you run like 14 gauge 4 conductor speaker cable to all your speaker locations in your room. That would be, the side channels, the back channels. Now you have Atmos with the speakers in the ceiling. You've got your front channels and your center channel. But don't forget subwoofers. And we're not just talking one subwoofer. We always recommend at least 2 subwoofers. And you can watch our videos about that. Dual subwoofers give you better modal density in the room. It lets you control and manipulate the room modes, so you get better seat-to-seat consistency. So we definitely would recommend you put plenty of pre-wires for subs, and that could usually be RCA level, or if you're doing speaker level and you have the amplifier in your rack, just kind of think it through before you plan the room, and it'll just save you a world of hurt. Another thing you might want to do too is talk to an electrician. If they can install a dedicated 20 amp line to where you're going to be plugging in all your power equipment, like your power amplifiers and your subwoofers, it's better if you have a dedicated outlet for your high power stuff. Otherwise, you'll notice when you're listening to really bass intense music, your lights might dim in your house if you're sharing an outlet with the outlet that's on your lights. And you lose power that way too. So it's really a good idea if you could do a dedicated outlet for a situation like that. So, that covers the pre-wire stuff. The next thing I would tell you is step 3 is to fix your room acoustics. And people don't realize that. You look at a lot of these magazines, and they show you these beautiful home theaters, these beautiful speakers, but they're in a glass house with tile floor, with vaulted ceilings, and it's just a reflection nightmare. And you will, no matter how good of the equipment you put in a room like that, it's going to sound terrible. Okay? So what I would tell you is, if you have a room that has glass doors, sliding doors, get really thick, heavy draped curtains that you could basically cover when you're not going out of that room. Not only would that be better for the acoustics, it'll get rid of those side reflections that you don't want, but it'll also be better for light control. And we'll talk about a little bit more about that later. But take care of any surfaces that are glass in that room if you can. If your floor is tile or wood, get a really thick padded throw rug at the first reflection point. And we've talked about this before. The first reflection point is basically in front of the room. It's if you put a mirror on the floor and you could see the speaker, that's where your first reflection point is. But you need a good amount of carpet to cover that area. I have a throw rug that's 12 by 15 at my first reflection point in my theater room, which has wood floors. Makes a world of difference, guys, especially if you put a really thick pad under it. The other thing you could look at doing is get couches like these home theater seats, they kind of act a little bit like a bass trap at low frequencies. They absorb, so they help get rid of a little bit of the echo in the room. Don't go crazy making a room too dead. I mean, if you can, and if the natural stuff doesn't work out perfectly for you, then you can look at passive treatments. There are companies that design acoustical panels that you could look at doing. Just don't go crazy with it. If you've got space in the corners of your room, it's not a bad idea to put bass traps. Anytime you do stuff like that, it'll help out with the bass in your room, even if you use a multi-sub. You just don't want to go nuts by throwing like 50 bass traps in a room, because then your room starts becoming inefficient, and you don't want that. You want a good balance. So I would tell you, start naturally first. Start with the throw rugs, the drapery, and the couches and all that stuff. And if the room sounds good to you and the music sounds good to you, then you're probably done. You don't need to go crazy. But if you want to spice things up a little bit, or make your room a little bit more of a honed in environment, then look at doing some professional room treatments. It's never a bad idea to look at that. So you got your room fixed, you got the right room, you got your pre-wire. Let's go to step 4. Step 4 is to plan out your speaker and furniture positions for optimal performance. A lot of people don't realize this. They'll just get all this great equipment and they'll put it anywhere, or they'll put the couches up against walls. And I've been to so many houses and I'm like, oh man, you really did a great job with component selection, but you didn't do that great of a job setting it up or placing stuff. People don't realize your couches or your seats are what's called positional EQ. You don't want to put a couch up against a back or side wall. You don't want to put it up against a back wall, because that's where all your standing waves, that's a pressure maximum. That's where you get too much bass and it just won't sound good. And you don't want to put it on a sidewall, because then you'll be too close to a surround speaker. You'll be too far off axis from your center channel and your mains. You just lose focus in the sound. So you really want the couches or the theater seats as close to the center position of the room, about 1/4 of the way from the back wall. We actually have a little video on that you could look at, and some articles that discuss that. But if you could follow the 1/4 L rule by keeping the couches away from that distance, you'll be doing yourself a lot better, because you'll get better bass and it'll just be better positional EQ for your speakers. Now, we've got videos and articles on speaker placement, how to set up a 5.1 or 7.1 speaker system. I'll link those up in this video, and I'll put some articles in the supporting article for this video. You guys can take a look at that. I don't need to rehash it. We've covered it. It's plenty of material there for you to look at. So make sure you get good speaker placement. The same thing goes with subwoofers. Subwoofers especially, there's a science to subwoofer placement. We've got diagrams that you can look at. We've got articles, videos, you name it, how to place 2 subs. Even if you can't place the subs in ideal locations, or you don't have a rectangular room, you could use the subwoofer crawl method that we talk about. It's a law of reciprocity, and it'll help you find a good starting point to put a subwoofer, and it'll help at least at that one seat. If you do that multiple times with 2 subs, you'll widen the sweet spot. That way all the seats are good seats. So again, guys, pay close attention to speaker positioning and your listening couches where you're sitting. Very important, okay? Okay, guys, let's go to step 5. That's controlling lighting and noise, external noise to be precise. So whether you're using a fixed panel display or front projection, you really want to be able to control the natural lighting in the room. If you've got a sliding door that brings in a lot of sunlight, that drapery will not only help acoustically, but it'll help block out that light when you want to, when you want to be critical about what you're watching on your TV. If you've got a lot of reflections in the room, if you've got surfaces that are shiny, try to find ways to cover that. You want to be able to create an environment that's almost like being in a bat cave. That's the best way you're going to preserve dynamic range and contrast ratio of your display. Now, the same thing is true with noises. A lot of people have HVAC noises, and if you have the air handling in the same room, like I did in this theater room, I put a solid core door, and I put really thick padding, like 5-6 inches of padding, and I cut the noise from that handler down over 10 dB, which is huge. Anytime you lower the noise floor in your home theater system, you increase the system's dynamic range. So you don't have to play it as loud to hear those subtle passages, and to hear better dynamics in your system. Get that noise floor down by controlling your external noises. That'll really do wonders for your video and your audio. So just kind of think about what's in your room that's causing these problems and try to find creative solutions to fix it. And we've got articles on that too, and I'll link them up as well into the written portion of this video. Step 6, configure and calibrate your home theater. You know, no matter how good the equipment is, even if you have it all set up in a nice position, if you don't physically set up all the parameters inside your processor and your projector, your Blu-ray player, if you don't get that stuff right, that can make or break the system as well. So the first thing you want to do is get your bass management right. You want your speakers playing the right signals. You don't want, most of the time, you don't want your main speakers and the rest of the speakers in your system playing bass. That's what your subwoofers are for. That's why you have bass management. That's why 80 hertz is usually the best crossover point to start with. And you know, not only do you want to get your bass management set right, you want to get your channel trims set correctly. You want to get your delays set correctly. So we've got articles and videos that talk about this, and I really recommend you take a deep look at it and just get all this stuff set up right. The same thing goes when with your display. We have a video that talks about how to calibrate your display like at under 10 minutes using the Spears and Munsell disc. You know, most of the time the displays are pretty accurate now with color, but you got to get your black levels right, and these discs will show you how to do that. So guys, please take the time, do the calibrations. It'll make a world of difference. It'll make you happy. It'll make your system sound better, and it's just a win-win for everybody. So let's go to step 7. Make your room look like a home theater. Now this, you guys have a lot of liberty to do what you want. I have some recommendations I could tell you, and you know, you can tell us more what you guys like to do as well. I like to dress the room up with props. You guys probably know by now that I'm a big Star Trek fan, and if you come in my theater room, you're going to see a lot of Star Trek stuff, whether it's posters or it's little tribbles or action cups or whatever. It's nice to have a theme in the room. A popcorn maker is awesome to have. We have a little bar where we keep our drinks. Make sure you have coasters in your room, because otherwise people are going to use your speakers for that purpose, and you don't want that. You don't want people putting wet drinks on your speakers. So guys, I think that's it. I think we've covered everything from steps 1 through 7, from converting a room into a home theater. Why don't you share us what you guys have done? Give us some ideas. Maybe we left something out in these videos you want to discuss. Comment down below. Let us know what you think, and let us know what you want to talk about next. And guys, until next time, keep listening.